in right now. Why don't you, I'm going to pour a little bit of 2 bars.
Do it.
Oh, the gentle splash.
I got to finish their vlog, but that's going to be up soon.
You do? Okay, well.
All right. Here we go. Episode 8. Welcome back to Under the Influence, where we discuss all the things that influence our lives. Today's topic?
Setbacks.
Yes.
So, should we just dive right in? Because we have an episode where we talked about failures. Like the whole thing was about that. So I was struggling with, the difference between the two, but I think there is a distinct difference.
Yes. And what would that difference be?
I think failures don't really exist, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can have something that doesn't work out, but like it's for yourself, like you're not a failure because something doesn't go the way you planned it.
Right.
Even if you don't put in 100% effort and you totally screw something up and botch it, it doesn't make you a failure. Setbacks are real though. Like you have setbacks. It doesn't mean that the plan doesn't happen, but they are a real pain in the ass, and it's something that happens to everybody.
And at risk of sounding cliche, character building.
Definitely.
As well.
Yeah.
But then last week we talked about the big picture, and I think kind of piggybacking on that, setbacks can be a big part of the big picture. And a lot of times need to go through those setbacks to figure out how to get to the big picture goals.
Yeah, or finding out that your big picture isn't as big as you thought it was, right?
Yeah.
Like you achieve something, and you even touched on it last week where you might do a big show, or you've got a venue that you've always dreamed of seeing your name out front, and then you do it and you go, I thought this was like 400 feet in the air,
right?
And that's only 12 feet up off the sidewalk.
And then you're like, the stage is actually a little bit smaller than I thought, and with the lights on, it doesn't look as huge.
Or backstage, right?
Oh my gosh. Like the venue that we're both thinking of is the Triple Door in Seattle. It was my dream one. And they actually are one of the places that actually have a good backstage.
It is good, and it's cool because you go through the fish bowls that overlook the stage and the audience, but it's still not rooms, it's not baller though.
And most green rooms are like disgusting anyway.
Really, really disgusting.
Especially the cooler venues in Seattle.
Yeah, it's like before things get thrown away, they move it into the break or into the green room for a couple years, and like just assume that it's so bad that it's okay. And it still feels cool. It does feel like it's got rich history. I think I don't know.
Have like a rider that says, "Please clean up the old beer cans."
I'm just amazed at how it doesn't matter how big the act is. You go back and go,
fancy. This is it.
No wonder they stay on the bus so long.
Anyways, we digress.
Well, it happens.
So, in talking about setbacks, what has been one of the biggest setbacks for you that you can remember? Or how do you identify setbacks?
I mean, I think a setback is sometimes that you're right on your path doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and it feels like you're in the middle of a big, giant setback. Mm-hmm. I would ask you, how does it feel being a mother? And I think you would say amazing in 1,000 ways. And it feels like
a giant setback, especially physically.
I know you asked me a question and I turned around immediately.
No, I've really been struggling with that because when I got pregnant, I was I was really working on my fitness. I felt really personally strong and happy with where I was. And when you wear crop tops and dance on stage, being fit definitely helps in that arena.
It helps with confidence too, right?
Yeah.
Like just feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Yes,
For
absolutely.
you, that's where you feel the most comfortable. Mm-hmm. For me, I like 230.
I do too, though, on you.
I really don't love 230 either, but I'm just messing around. Sticking up for the Husky folks.
Oh, I thought you meant UW Husky.
No,
I immediately had a reaction. But yeah, I don't mind Husky people.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Jesus.
I think you're so cute.
That is not what I'm talking about.
I know. Anyways, so that has felt like a huge setback to me, just having to turn down festival offers this summer because I was gigantically pregnant, and getting strength back vocally, strength back physically. I lost all my muscle. Like I feel weak and like I'm starting from square one. So that's in this amazing addition to our family and all these great things that come along with having a baby. It's really hard. it feels like a setback right now.
And I feel like moms often think it's not okay to say that. Like, I think one of the things that really worked well for your blogs was the fact that you were really honest with that. Probably the most response you've gotten from anything you've done has been being honest about pregnancy and early.
I'm just not one of the women that can be like, I feel the most confident and most beautiful. I did not have that experience. And I know a lot of women that also did not have that experience. So it was cool to see the responses from women that say, oh, thank you for saying that. I felt the same way, but was afraid to say it. And I was like, should I have been afraid to say that? Because I'm like, this is the reality. And then moving forward, even now, especially in the first, few weeks of Caden's life, the kind of mom Instagram group kind of came to my defense and help and said, hey, have you tried this? I know this is really hard. And so it's cool to be honest about it and then be able to receive feedback
connect with people over it too. Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the powerful tools about having your own blog and doing it. Like, we both have our own pathways to talk about things that are important to us and aren't just something like you and I don't always agree on things, and we're not always going to be passionate about the same subject. So the blog becomes a cool way for you to like pitch that stuff up. And like, I think that run of stuff through the pregnancy and early childbirth was like, it resonated.
Tried to keep it a little humorous at times as well.
Well, honesty can be a little...
I'm not afraid of it.
All you can do is laugh at it. Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it. Anyways.
So I'm ready to answer my setback. Okay. Like, I was, while we were talking, I was thinking of like, just trying to think of times where I felt like something was out of my control and I just kind of was going to just completely deviate. And it comes back to one person at PLU. Her name was Bonnie Atwood.
Really?
And she was like part of the admissions department. And she would be the one that would get stuck with a lot of the paperwork regarding financial aid and kind of checking up on where payments were. And I was a sophomore and I got a bunch of scholarships my freshman year and had a lot of help with books. That was one of the things I was not prepared for, was thousands of dollars in books. And I remember coming into my sophomore year, I got my classes, but I hadn't paid for anything yet. And I hadn't bought books for any of my classes. I was borrowing them from friends. And
books are so stupid.
It's insane.
How much money. It's like, this is $300. And then you buy it, give it back a month later. It's like, this is worth $350.
Yeah, exactly. No, that whole process is part of the reason I got my degree in economics. It's part of the reason I wrote my senior seminar on price discrimination amongst colleges and universities in the U.S. Like, I'm very passionate about how much of a ripoff and how structured it is to ensure that you're leaving in an awful lot of debt. Maybe that's a different conversation, but I was starting to feel the early effects of that. And I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I was working at Good Guys for, I was making decent money, but also trying to pay for the rest of things in life.
And go to school.
So it was just one of those situations where I felt like at that point, there was no way for me to stay at PLU and pay $35,000. This was never going to happen.
Right.
And the problem was my family's income is used against me and I have no access to it. And most importantly, like, my mom was making half what it cost to go to school for the year. So I was running into issues where she couldn't borrow the money to help me stay in school. So Bonnie Atwood actually figured out a loophole at the 11th hour. Like, I was sitting there looking at a corded phone in my dorm room, getting ready to call. I may have even called Bob and Beth Lane, but I had getting ready to call the rest of my family and let everyone know that I was going to leave school and it just wasn't going to work out at PLU. And, I waited. I was kind of just scared to admit that was going to be a path I was going to go down. And Bonnie reached out to me and figured out that if my mom was denied, I could automatically be approved for the loan amount for myself. And it was deferred till later on, till I graduated. And so every year, Bonnie would submit an entire docket full of applications for my mom, knowing we'd get, denied immediately.
Yeah.
And then it would set me up for automatic approval. So I was stacking up student loan debt, obviously, and still have a fair amount of that floating over me. But that's one of the times in life where I remember just thinking, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This just seems like, and when you're a kid, like, those numbers seem like,
oh my gosh, they still seem like
it's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the biggest setbacks, where I just remember being like, that was a heavy stage in life. And
especially after being there for a year. I think that'd be so hard if it was like you were going to school and just kind of looking at the numbers, but having dedicated a year, gotten settled, wanting to stay there and being like, I don't think
And
that's
it's a smaller
possibility.
school, and it was like I immediately, like, there were 5 or 6 of my closest friends all went at the same time. We were like, it was clearly like my place where I wanted to be. So that one was the heaviest setback for me. And obviously, you know, it worked out. I think it worked out. But no, that's a time I remember just being like down and out and feeling like, what, this is going to be an embarrassing situation for me.
But it turned into a solution.
Yeah. And a mountain of student loan debt.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, and I want to go into the
I know. Another time, Jake.
the
Another
Shiesty
time.
University strategies.
What about more like recently, professionally? What has been a setback that you either were disappointed with and had to work around, or just like let things go? Like, how do you handle setbacks now?
I mean, I think like I'm custom built for the cannabis industry because everything changes all the time. That's the only constant. So you can set up business structures and have everything be as right as you possibly can. And then a subtle change happen. And all of a sudden that means all banks are out. I remember after years of dealing with Chase and them saying, hey, just don't even say what kind of account it is. Just make the deposits and go. And we had an account for a long time and eventually got shut down and we moved on. We finally got a real bank account from a credit union, Verity. I was pumped because they went on big radio shows and made an announcement. We're going to work with the cannabis industry. We're going to buck the system. We're going to come. And I know for a fact, as I had friends that were actually, if Dan's listening, Dan Austin was a assistant manager at the office. And so I got a little bit of back end feedback, like the feds came in and said,
No
no,
way.
you're not, guys. So we had opened up with accounts. Them like our industry basically lined up to open up Verity accounts. And within a couple of weeks, they shut them all down and were out. And a lot of us had pivoted from bank accounts that were open, but were deemed as like just bakery accounts. And it wasn't like we were trying to dupe the system. We had bank accounts. It was just, you know, we were able to consolidate everything. And so it wasn't just all cash anymore. And it felt like we finally had a solution and it was gone.
Yeah.
And now I'd burned, you know, it's just like we're back to square one. We pay additional fees for paying in cash. We get dinged. We're at risk for robbery. Like,
I don't even understand how I think you in particular can deal with shifting sand so much, but I can't even keep up with all the changes that you have. Like, you'll pursue something and then it will either fall through or the rules will change. Like, okay, we have to do this instead. And I personally
or like $1 million
like,
swings sometimes.
Right.
Like I remember a big deal with a company that fell through and we walked from it, but I've touched on it a few times, but that was 7-figure deal. You know, I've done the numbers on what my holdings in that deal would be worth today, and it's massive, many deep into the 7 figures. And getting in the car and be like, well, what's next? Like, that's not going to work. And, you know, the group in Florida, that's another recent one. You know, they approached us about a big play, and you know, everything's still an option, but there was $100,000 spent on their part and a lot still owed to our group. And they effectively pulled out. And this is a group that I said, hey, if you're not comfortable being out $5 to $7 million before you even find out whether or not you get licensing, this is not a play for you.
Right.
Like it's a big market. And we went we went all the way into that. And, you know, I'm still owed a significant amount of money personally, even from that deal. And that was one that was a good deal for the Pubco as well. There were a lot of things coming down the pike with that deal that, you know, no one will, well, they will now, but at the time didn't really know how much of a blow that was for our household as well as the Pubco and all the other entities we're tied to. So it was going to be a major play, and maybe it still is, but it was one of those where I was dead set that I'd be spending, you know, a third of the next year in Florida helping these guys get this set up and taking all the brands and IP in, but, you know, it changed real quick.
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what families with billions of dollars at their disposal, they come in and they were signing contracts and lining everything up, and there was no fear, lawyers flying out, everyone going back and forth, and then, you know, you get that call of like, well, we've been talking about it and running. I'm like, what
People don't. It's interesting. I think when people come in from the business world and come into the cannabis realm, they don't understand how regulated it is and how.
Or like I was hiring people specific for that job.
Yeah.
interviewing new legal counsel to bring on specific for that job. Like the amount of planning and commitments that get made on the backside of any one small deal are, no one knows that. So it's not just like my disappointment in it or, potential acquisitions that I really, really want. And like people that I want to work with. Every time we make an acquisition, it's an opportunity to bring in more talent. And there's been some groups with really talented people and good businesses that we just couldn't get a deal pushed over. And it's not just me or the shareholders that are disappointed that something didn't go out or they didn't get the news they were looking for. It's, the relationships that you build over 3-4 months working with a potential new acquisition or partner. It's those are setbacks to me. But again, there's always another opportunity. It always seems like there's a bigger deal right behind that one. And, I've been used to it. It just,
so they don't feel, even if you're disappointed, they don't feel like they're derailing where you're going.
And, it's next up. Like we're still at the plate, game's still on. Like we got tons of opportunities. We've not lost anything. It was just a gain. And as long as we're not out, my expectation is not to have made $100 million by this point in my life. If it was, I'd be very disappointed. My goal is to have that, honestly, have that number, be something that's real in 10 to 12 years. And so today, I think the opportunity gets bigger and bigger, and I don't worry about it.
Well, look at you. No, that's awesome. Like I said, I think you have an ability that not a lot of people have to be able to shift and change as much as you do. You never see it as like, oh, you're like, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll do this instead, and we'll go this direction.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to be like a flag blowing in the wind, right? It's just there's steps. There's a big play, the big picture item.
But you take a lot of the emotion out of it.
Yes,
like
I have to. Yeah.
If you're disappointed or you're like, you don't have any. You just like, I can't be upset.
It's a file in a file cabinet as far as I'm concerned. Like it can't make noise or cry or scream. It's got to be closed and put in its place. If you want to look at it again, you can go back and see it. I mean, I literally I block out anything that's not in the first 5 files and work on the next thing.
What an interesting file cabinet that would be.
It's probably a hot mess. No, I think, and the other thing for me is like with my big picture stuff, there's timelines and there's pressures to do things, but my age and my, the way I look doesn't play a role in it. And like, honestly, in your world, that's a big part of it. It doesn't, you don't have to be, it helps a lot. And
again, I mean, I think it's just in female nature to just be a little bit more self-conscious. So for me, if I'm taking pictures and doing like that one photo shoot I did do, I was pregnant at the time, but I was only like 8 weeks along no one knew. And I was doing a photo shoot like with Neiman Marcus and for Bellevue Lifestyle. And I remember at the time thinking like, man, I'm getting kind of bloated. Like I'm just like bigger. Like I felt bigger. And then I look back at those pictures. I'm like, you idiot. Like you should have just been walking around in a bikini. Like who cares?
Yeah. Remember the one I took a shot of you with the like red bottom heels on and you were just wearing Calvin Klein underwear and it like seemed way too racy. And like I was coming across those pictures like that's one of the best pictures I've ever taken.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to post it.
Don't you?
I'm going to on the teaser. It's going to be like right here.
Whatever.
Booty cheek.
Anyways, and not to make it all about like physical. I think for me, it's more about like the feeling strong and confident and like in control of my body. I think that's been the hardest thing is that my body has reacted in a way where I have no say. And now I've, been working hard, but again, feeling like I'm starting over from square one. And I feel like I was in a really good spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in particular, that has been quite the challenge, feels like a setback, but I think ultimately it will I'll be even more focused on it because that's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
Anyways, what about any other? So you have the PLU one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like, not to be like a whiny baby, but I've had a ton of setbacks. I feel like my start to life was a bit of a setback, and my mom dealt with tons of setbacks. And I just remember like everyone else's problems seemed like, who cares? Your parents didn't say good game at the end of the game. It's like they were both there, and so were your brothers and your sister and your grandparents.
Had the equipment. And
and your brand new Nike. You know what I mean? Like you change your shoes on the way off the court. Like, calm down. But, and that's
Put
not
on your Adidas and slides.
Yeah.
You can't wear your court shoes outside.
You sound like a Kirkland girl.
Maybe.
Maybe, but no, I think that created like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder from the standpoint of like, I always felt like I had something to prove, and I was always fighting up like a little bit tougher road to hoe than everyone else. And of course, right. Everyone else in context that I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm a white American male. Like, that wasn't like it was the worst life ever.
Yeah.
But definitely feel like, starting with my mom being 14 and like just on the grind from day one, there were many times when I'd be complaining about something and she'd say, when I was 19, I had a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you'll figure this out, so, and that put things in context, like from forever.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like some of that adversity and some of those challenges, like I think it leads to like the ability to cope with a lot of changes and a lot of stress and a lot of things being laid on your plate all the time. And I figure as long as I can eat and I've got a roof over my head, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I figure as long as I can, eat whatever I want and I live on Mercer Island, I'm doing great.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with you.
So let me throw it back to you. Like, what's the biggest setback, or one that just immediately jumps to your mind of like, I remember that.
Well, one that comes to mind that actually led to like my life being changed is I was trying to think like what's the worst show I've had. And there's this private like old school what do you call it? Not like a country club, but
It's like a Lions Club or something?
Yeah. That hired me to come do, I had done a Christmas event for them, and it was where it's an all, like, it sounds dirtier than it is, but it's like an all males group, and you have to be like grandfathered in. And it's in Capitol Hill. It's this like kind of secret society type of thing. Again, it sounds a lot worse than it actually is, but I played for their Christmas program, and they brought all their families, and it was really great. So they asked me to come in and do like more of a specific show. And I remember I was just not the right fit for it. Everybody there was a lot older. There was one man in particular who I think either had drank a lot or was struggling with something and kept coming up to the piano and like demanding that I play, oh my gosh, Garth Brooks.
Okay.
And I did like the one Garth Brooks song that I knew at that moment that I could play. And then he kept demanding Garth Brooks. Anyways, it was a very degrading evening. And so my friend Sarah at the time, we're going to go see Alan Stone's show at Numos on Capitol Hill. And I was like, man, that was just such a crappy gig. Like, I don't know if I want to go out. Like, and I had to change in my car and the whole thing. And that was the night that I met you.
Fantastic.
So funny how that little setback led to.
I remember you complaining about it because it's like you were explaining. That's the first time I heard anyone say it was a soul sucking gig.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, I got paid.
I've had a lot of those.
And I had to stand there or sit there and just take requests from old bastards. I was not the right fit for that. When those things happen, do you think like, is this like, does it feel like this is the path I'm on and this,
Yes.
I'm going to have hundreds of these before something like,
Yep. And
yeah?
I felt like that a lot, especially I remember when I first started making a living as a musician, I was pumped about anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're going to pay me to play and sing. Awesome. And then over time, I just didn't feel any progression. So especially there were some gigs where just one or two people would come up and say, hey, this really impacted me, or I really loved this song. And that made it worth it. But there is probably even more so where people either didn't care or, something, again, very soul sucking.
Yeah. Then put you in the back corner and keep asking you to turn it down, turn it down. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that one too. I'm like, well, do you want me to just leave? Okay. Is it too loud? Anyways, but so I felt like that was a big setback when I looked around and like, okay, I'm just doing the same type of gigs and not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
But then that's where my whole focus started to shift.
But do you think at that time, I'm not saying you weren't, I'm asking this genuinely. Do you think at that time you were ready for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I need a 2-hour or, a full set at the Triple Door on Wednesday of next week, and you were ready to hit it and do a good job at it?
No, no. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Yes. Yes. I would go with yes, because I was surrounded by awesome musicians all the time. And I think but I needed to keep doing those gigs, or it became so second nature that I could pull together a set.
Yeah, that was kind of my question, because I remember talking to Austin Jenks way before The Voice and all that stuff, and I remember talking to him about what he was getting paid for. He get like $300 a night, and it was free drinks, and they'd usually feed you. And so I was kind of doing some quick math, and I was like, man, and he plays a lot of shows.
Yeah,
he's got a good vibe, kind of like you actually, where he can play like really. Like you can do pop stuff, and you can do like, R&B, really, really up tempo stuff, but you can always also do like lounge style Amy Winehouse vibe. And Austin can kind of do the same thing and kind of chameleon based on who the crowd is. And he was getting hired a lot. And I remember thinking like, man, $300-$400 a show, you're getting 4 or 5.
And we're super lucky in the Pacific Northwest, because a lot of like places like Nashville, LA, you're not going to get that type of money because there's just musicians everywhere.
And they value it more. But what I was saying though is I was kind of doing the math and thinking like, what is the big deal with Nashville? Why do you want to go do all of this? Like if you can make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year doing what you love, is that okay? Like that seems like success to me, but that's not what is in a musician's spirit, right?
I was just gonna say, I think with musicians, our whole like desire and driving desire is to be heard, and whatever message you're trying to get across and that like comes out of us, we want someone to receive that and say like, yep, I get it.
Then why do so many pretend like they don't want to be heard or seen or hide behind a facade? Like if you have a microphone in front of you and you want to sing and bare your soul in front of people, like you get something from it.
Yeah.
I don't totally buy into the emotional folk who hate how much they love it.
Yeah, no, I've never been like that.
It just doesn't feel, it feels like this. It feels like the moms that say, when I was 40 pounds overweight and I felt the most beautiful ever. Like that's the same kind of analogy where it feels like that's kind of what you feel like you should say. But you could also just be honest and say, I get nervous when I go up on stage, but I just love it once I get there. But yeah. Anyway, that's a totally different subject. Or like people recording in the studio who want like the room cleared for them to do it. I had never understood that. I'm mostly just pissed because it'd be my studio and I would get asked to leave. It felt shitty.
I was going to say for me, I'd be like, bring more people in. Let me perform.
You would. But
I get that. I don't understand that. That's just not my personality.
Yeah.
But I do feel like someone like Bon Iver, I feel like he would be the kind that would be like, I don't want anyone to listen. Like, honestly, he wouldn't want that.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I would want everyone to listen and everyone to hear and be broadcasted everywhere. That would be my desire.
Of course. So
should we get into questions?
Yeah.
Question time. We had talked a little bit about bringing in kind of random questions to ask our guests and each other.
We need the wheel. Like I want a little bit like a question roulette every episode. And since we're only like, we're under 10 episodes in, so it might make it into the first season.
We need to get it.
So are you asking the question? Because I have mine. Mine's about softball, and I think I already know your answer. But
well, okay, go for it.
Well, you got something better?
I kind of wanted to ask you one.
Okay, go for it.
It's very random.
Okay.
If you could pick any, like, if there's any female character in a movie that you would love to like either portray or be in real life.
Oh, I'm the character, not the actress, or actor that played them.
And it's not like an actress that would play you. Like any female-led movie, like who would you love to be?
See, that's weird because my first thought was Julia Roberts when you're thinking of character, just because she's like a badass to me.
Yeah.
But then I thought Pretty Woman, and that's not really what like. That's not the.
In your dream female scenario, you would be a prostitute.
No. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm going to stick with the same actress because I feel like she does a good job. I think like Erin Brockovich or something, like someone that like kind of came from nothing and is still like kicking ass.
I can see that.
I remember being like I was pretty young when that movie came out. I remember thinking like, this woman is awesome. I could tell that everybody was like kind of looking down their nose at her.
Yeah.
And it feels a little bit like
her cheetah bra hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Oddly, I'm going, and I feel like she's still in like championing movements and fighting the powers that be. Like, I think that'll work.
Okay.
I feel much better about that than I do the
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman, yeah. Definitely.
Was her name Vivian?
No offense, Mr. Gere.
Richard Gere.
So the thing about the questions is you have to answer the same question.
I have to answer the same question.
Yeah.
So for me, would it be like a male?
It's got to be a dude for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to go with John McClane in Die Hard.
What? Just because
it's like he's so far from my personality.
I feel like you needed more time to answer that question. Okay.
And in my dreams, I am this super badass like action person all the time.
An action person.
Like I'm always like jumping over buses and getting away from bad guys, and like I must think very highly of myself in my subconscious, because in my dreams I'm like always doing some sort of like action adventure. I'm always like a ninja. Really,
I can't punch anything. I'm like slow to run. I'm like the worst.
No, I'm pretty much on top of it.
Oh man, I'm like zombie food in all of my dreams. It's just I'm like even when I'm like trying to make I remember like a dream where I'm like trying to make a bold statement and I punched the wall and I was like so soft. And I was like, what's wrong? I remember thinking in my head like that was stupid. I hate dreams. I'm going to sidebar
Maybe I'm
dreams.
just more conceited then.
Well, that's probably, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. You're arrogant. That's like the man version of conceited.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to take it, but I'll agree with you.
Not overly so.
You know, one of the things, this is a sidebar about dreams.
Yeah.
You know this about me.
Yes.
I hate dreams.
I love them.
When people they start out to me and say, oh man, you know what I had a dream last night about. I immediately think, great. I get to listen to a fake story about something that never happened, that is, you can only remember bits and pieces of. And I've got to sit here while you try and stitch it together. And you know, you can't remember all the shit from your dreams.
But
I hate it.
But do you not think that, I always think of like, what's the hidden, like, what are you feeling that makes that dream? Like I always look for little nuggets.
Your mind was in a like a dopamine rage while your eyes were closed.
I've gotten some amazing ideas from dreams.
That's like saying like I was going to say, that's like saying your thoughts lead to something amazing.
You mean like the thoughts that we're talking about right now?
No, they're so random. Mitch Hedberg had a joke. He's like, I hate dreams. He's like, one minute I'm sitting enjoying myself. The next minute I got to build a go-kart with my ex-landlord. Like, that's funny. But
I feel like this is probably not right, but I feel like I heard something like the Beatles or somebody really successful like that. Like they heard a lot of these songs in their dreams.
I think you're totally making that up. And
no,
I think that's been said.
The Beatles,
but they were also super high most of the time.
I know. But I'm just talking about like creatively, I get a lot of ideas from dreams. And I feel like I get a lot of like premonitions from dreams.
Well,
I love them.
I don't buy any of that. I don't want to hear about it.
I don't want to hear
about any of it.
I will not tell you any of my dreams.
No, I think it's cool when you like see somebody a long time and they say, oh, I had a dream, but like, oh, I was somehow like on your mind, or like I was present in your world a little bit.
Interested to see what kind of dreams you have tonight. Maybe they're going to be really purposeful that lead to something cool.
Well, rest assured I won't be boring you with them in the morning.
No, I want to know.
You would.
I know.
Well, okay, so now can I ask my question? Now I've ranted on about
what's your question?
Dreams. My question is, it's too easy, but if you could be a guest on any, like either a late night television show or a YouTube channel or Ellen, like any show, what would you pick?
Jimmy Fallon.
Over
Hands
Ellen?
Down. I would absolutely love to be on Ellen. I just feel like I would vibe with Jimmy Fallon more. I want to, I want to play the game.
You're just trying to get one degree of separation away from JT is what you're really trying to do.
Maybe that, maybe subconsciously in my dreams.
No, absolutely consciously.
No, I feel like he would be super fun to talk to. I would get to meet the Roots. I'm guessing.
That's solid.
And I love his games. Like I want to play the game. It's like truth or lie or what's in my box. And so if you see this game, so they have a wall of boxes and you have to pick a box and you have a partition. So like if you and I were playing, you couldn't see what's in my box, but the audience can. So they take something out like a troll doll on a skateboard, something random. And you have to describe it to the other person. And you have to say whether the person is lying or telling the truth.
So it's like headbands for children with a box.
Yes, but it's really, really
Jimmy
funny.
Fallon.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's like, would be so fun for me.
I think that would be a good fit because there would be music skits and just general tomfoolery.
I feel like we would just laugh the night away.
Oh, and he'd just invite you to be a
He would invite
co-host
me
and it would
we
just last forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I
Questlove
thought
would
you'd
be
say Ellen or...
Ellen would be, she's a very, very close second.
Yeah.
But I feel like, Jimmy Fallon, Questlove would be like, hey, we're having this rooftop party in New York. Do you want to come? And I'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I totally think you should do Jimmy.
Yeah.
Late night with Jimmy. For me, I went back and forth between two, but that seems like cheating. If I'm answering that same question, I'm going with Bill Maher. I'd like to be on Real Time with Bill Maher because I have to put it in the context of like what I'm into, and I think I could obviously I could speak intelligently on the cannabis industry, and I'm very much into a lot of the things that are openly discussed on that show.
For some reason, I feel like that's not a big reach.
No, I should do that when the U.S. reschedules cannabis. I think those things. I mean, that's really what the path I was on before with the PR team.
Yeah.
That we did. We weren't doing things quite that big, but that's like the next phase after doing the kind of news circuit and all of the. And
Bill Maher is so pro pot. I feel like he'd be the perfect person to ask all those questions.
Yeah. No, I think that's also comfortable. I wouldn't be like asked to perform or do anything silly.
Would you be nervous though? Because you have like stage fright, but I feel like you aren't nervous when you have to.
If I'm in my element, I don't mind this stage at all.
Yeah.
It's not, that doesn't bother me.
It's mainly if I make you come on stage and play the piano.
Yeah. Or even when you do karaoke and you come dance all over me and you're doing, just super dramatic, knock the microphone stand over.
What you're talking
just about. For the sole purpose of making me extremely uncomfortable. Like that works. That really works.
It's so fun for me.
I hate it.
You got to give the people a show, Jake. Okay, it can't be a boring.
No, I like when you do it. I'm just saying, like if you would just stay away from me and do it on.
No. Speaking of karaoke, you're like 2 years past your bet.
Yeah, I was wondering how many episodes it would take for you to publicly call me out on that, because now I feel like you're setting up an opportunity for people to jump on the bandwagon, and ultimately I could be held.
So basically, Jake lost a bet, and the bet was that if he lost, he would have to perform karaoke. I said you can pick the place. Did I say that? I think I said you could pick the place.
You told me I could pick the place and the time, and I could never do it if I didn't want to.
That's absolutely untrue. I said to make you feel more comfortable, you could pick the place, but you have to do it.
Yep.
So
I'm a little overdue, but we'll get to it.
Very much so. We should do a podcast from your karaoke performance.
That's just absolutely going to happen.
Under the influence on the road.
I would have to be
for Jake's first
way under the influence for that to happen.
We'll plan that next episode. Anyway, so what's applicable for our listeners out there? If they're having a setback right now, if they're frustrated with something.
I mean, I'll soapbox for a minute because that's what I do.
I was going to say, oh, you will.
Yes, I will. I think like setbacks, there's only really one kind of setback that bothers me, and that's one that's like out of my control. And those are tough, right? You can't, that's not like a look on the bright side situation. I guess you have to, but it's really hard to find the positive in something like for us, it happens a lot where, an employee moves on, particularly somebody who's really, really good. And as we're starting to see success, it draws in interest from other companies, and, it happens to me sometimes, and you're looking at an opportunity for somebody that you really care about and have built a strong relationship for. And it's something great. And when they take it, there's not much you can do about it other than be happy for them, but it is a setback nonetheless. So it's things like that are just completely, or death and things like that. Obviously those are really, really hard to just kind of cope with. But I think if it's financial or relating to your professional career and like taking your steps, like realizing that what you think is a setback is probably going to set up your next biggest thing you do. And I remember everyone getting laid off at Pioneer. I mean, they laid off like 75% of the staff, and I didn't get called. I was thinking like, oh shit, what if they keep me? I'm like one of the ones who wants to go. I was bags packed, ready to go to Florida, and I was gonna quit anyway and move on. And I got like one of the last calls. Hey, we're going to let you go. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. So for me, I saw that as an opportunity, but there were a lot of guys that I worked with that were really upset, and people were calling like, have you been called yet? And everyone was stressed out. How am I going to pay my bills? This, how long is the severance? And like the first guy to get laid off is like doing the telephone tag of like, I got this many months and this is how much they're giving. And everyone's like already like panicking and starting to file for unemployment. It was like a wave of people. And here I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna get paid while I'm on my way to go to the ocean and go live in Florida for a while. So it was an opportunity for me. So I just think that if you just keep in mind that, outside of death or something that's completely out of your control, you're probably only days or weeks away from pivoting on whatever seems like it's the biggest setback of your.
If I have learned any lesson, I think, and I'm speaking more to myself right now as well, is that setbacks are always temporary. And I think when you're in this season of a setback, it feels like it will never end. Like for me, out of college, when I worked at the Cheesecake Factory for over a year. And it was the recession. Okay. It was 2008.
No disrespect to current cheese employees that may be listening, or other employees that have
I personally had a hard time working there.
Yeah.
But hey, I was able to pay for stuff. And after my first album, I thought, oh, great. I worked so hard on this, piece of art, in my opinion, or just like created this baby. Get it? Because anyways, this album. And then I thought, like, once it's up, it's going to
go.
People are going to listen to it. It's going to be successful.
But that's kind of a big picture thing too. Like if you think making an album is the thing, then your picture's probably not big enough, right? Yep. Because it's building your brand is what really your big picture thing is.
And
an
jumping
album
off point.
Yeah, and it's a start, and it's your first like, oh wow, I can tread water, but I can't swim yet.
Yep. And just how naive no PR, no promotion.
You figure since it's on iTunes, people are clearly going to start downloading it, right? And then the buzz is going to be everywhere because track 3 was amazing.
Yep. So I remember, and it was at the time that I was waitressing, had a college degree, wanted to kind of start my life as a young 20-something, and it was not. But I'm glad it didn't, and that I had that time to like work through that process. And like working at the Cheesecake Factory like allowed me to travel for the first time and go out of the country, and like paid for things like that ultimately enhanced my life. So, and then right now, physically, again, temporary, hard parts with the baby, temporary. But in those moments, I feel like they can feel like they're not as temporary, especially when you're very, very tired.
You got to get a file cabinet.
I got to get a file. I'm a lot worse at the file cabinet than you.
You are. You like stacks and stacks of paper all over.
Just, I need to know all my feelings.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think this is probably a decent place to wrap up, don't you?
I do.
Any closing? You got any shows coming up or anything we need to know about? I mean, of course, go buy as much Suncliff product as
Suncliff product, and been doing a lot of work on my blog. So if I'm going to plug something, it'll be that, including a review on Suncliff products.
You did do a review on Suncliff products. You've got quite a few. You've been on fire with your blogs. You've been posting a lot of them lately.
It's been so much fun, and it's the ability to do it from here while taking care of the baby. So. It's been so fun to be able to have all these creative writing ideas and then pitch them to my publications, and the ones that don't go there, I'll do it on my blog, and I've been having a blast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If you were to offer one piece of advice to everyone listening right now, what would it be? Anything.
It would be to stop making excuses, and anytime I feel like I'm stuck, I forget that I remind myself that I am responsible for where I am.
Yep.
And that usually kind of snaps me out of it. And if I'm afraid of something, it's like, well, I can just do it, as opposed to being like, well, this person or this or the market or whatever. It's like, nope, there's always something that I can do and have patience with, but always something I can do.
My thing would be get started. It's kind of the same thing. Just get started, even if it's good, bad, whatever. If it's the first day at the gym, or or you're working on your last 2 abs in your 6-pack, like whatever it is you do, just keep doing it.
And you'll have setbacks, but you're still doing it.
You're still doing it.
You're still doing it.
No, I think too, like sharing the journey. I think the more you talk about it with other people, and that's I've been harping on Instagram stories. Like I've been trying to be really, really active on Instagram stories. It keeps me accountable, but also kind of keeps me connected. I feel like it encourages. I see friends of mine who I've been kind of prodding to be more active on it, starting to post more and be a little more thoughtful about it.
Love it.
And some of it's they're just in a different state or a different place than I am. And I think it's fun just to get to follow along on their journey. And a lot of times, like, you think that you're not doing much or you're not making an impact, and there's somebody out there in your life that's proud to see you doing what you're doing, and it's fun to watch. So get started, do something, particularly if it's a podcast or some piece of content. I think you guys should all be doing as much as you can to put your story out there.
Agreed.
All right.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.